Most people watch the due date. The bank is often watching a completely different date. Imagine driving down the highway at 80 miles an hour all month long. But there is a police officer with a radar gun sitting at a very specific mile marker. It does not matter if you slow down to the speed limit right after you pass the cop. If you were speeding at the exact second you crossed that radar gun, you get the ticket. This is exactly how the credit card industry works, and it is a trap almost everyone falls into. We are taught a very simple binary rule. Just pay your bill in full by the due date, and you will build excellent credit and avoid interest. Financial advisors, mainstream bloggers, and bank representatives preach this as the ultimate law of revolving credit. And while paying by the due date ensures you do not get charged a late fee, it completely ignores the mathematical reality of algorithmic credit scoring. The radar gun already caught you. Today, I'm going to show you how to turn statement closing dates, due dates, and reporting dates into a simple, predictable calendar that you can actually use. We are going to decouple your cash flow from your net worth. The core problem with the standard advice is that it conflates two completely different financial concepts. The credit card due date is a cash flow constraint. The statement closing date is a net worth driver. Blurring the lines between the two costs the average consumer thousands of dollars in systemic friction over their lifetime. My goal with this channel is to help you see the hidden architecture behind your money. If you find this kind of structural analysis helpful, hitting the subscribe button is the best return on investment for your time. It costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm to keep sending you math instead of hype. The reason the due date myth persists is due to a combination of intentional user interface design by financial institutions and a fundamental public misunderstanding of how algorithmic credit scoring actually works. The banks have built an environment where doing what feels responsible actually penalizes you in the background. To beat the system, we have to look at what the system actually rewards, not what the marketing brochures tell us to do. Let us start by looking at the trap sitting inside your phone right now. Open almost any banking app today. What do you see on the home screen? The due date and the minimum payment are presented in high contrast, bold, and often red text. They scream for your attention. Meanwhile, the statement closing date is buried under 3 different submenus, usually hidden inside a PDF document that takes 30 seconds to load. Human beings are wired to optimize for what is immediately visible. The banks know this. By highlighting the due date, they train you to focus entirely on the cash flow event. Society teaches us that paying bills on time makes you a financially responsible adult. While paying by the due date ensures compliance, meaning you avoid late fees and default, it completely ignores optimization. Optimization is about manipulating the data fed into the FICO scoring algorithms. The banks have absolutely no incentive to teach consumers how credit reporting actually works. If you pay your full balance on the due date but inadvertently trigger a high utilization penalty on your credit report, your FICO score drops. And when your score drops, the banking sector wins. It is a subtle transfer of wealth that happens entirely behind the scenes. That drop in your FICO score means you will be offered higher interest rates on your future auto loans, your next credit card, or your mortgage. This generates significantly more yield for the banks over the long term. It is a classic case of information asymmetry. The institution holds all the data and writes all the rules, while you are left playing a game where the scoreboard is hidden. You might think you are a model customer because you have never paid a cent of interest and you have never missed a payment. But algorithms do not have empathy. They do not care about your intentions. They only care about the data snapshot they receive on one specific day of the month. If you do not control that snapshot, you are leaving your financial reputation entirely up to chance. We have been conditioned to believe that compliance is the same thing as optimization. It is not. Compliance keeps you out of trouble, but optimization builds wealth. To shift from simply surviving the credit system to actively exploiting it for your own benefit, we need to break down the exact mathematics of the trap. Most people stop here, assuming they can just pay their bill a few days early and be fine. But guessing the timing is exactly how responsible people end up losing $50,000 on a mortgage. Let me show you the step they miss. To understand the trap, we must clearly define the 3 distinct dates in your billing cycle. Think of this as the operational blueprint of your credit card. Day 1 is the statement closing date. I call this the snapshot. This is the exact day your 30-day billing cycle ends, and the bank tallies up everything you spent. Day 2 is the reporting date. I call this the echo. This usually happens 0 to 3 days after your closing date. This is the moment the bank takes your snapshot and sends it to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Day 3 is the due date. This is the penalty gate. It always falls 21 to 25 days after the closing date. This is simply the day the bank requires your cash to avoid charging you fees and interest. The fatal error most people make is focusing all their energy on day 3, completely ignoring the fact that day 1 already decided their fate. Let us look at the mathematical trap of the perfectly responsible consumer. I call this person the due date payer. We will assume a credit card limit of $10,000. Our consumer spends $4,500 over the course of the month for groceries, gas, and normal living expenses. They plan to pay this off in full. The statement closes on the 1st of the month, so the balance on the snapshot is $4,500. On the 2nd of the month, the bank reports a 45% credit utilization ratio to the bureaus. That is $4,500 divided by the $10,000 limit. Fast forward to the 25th of the month, which is the due date. Our consumer proudly pays the entire $4,500 balance in full. 0 interest paid, 0 late fees. They feel like they won the game. But let us look at the result. Because credit utilization accounts for a massive 30% of a FICO score, crossing the 30% threshold triggers an algorithmic penalty. The consumer's score drops from a pristine 780 down to 715. They suffered a massive credit hit, despite doing exactly what conventional wisdom told them to do. Now, let us apply this to a real-world economic scenario. Let us say this same consumer goes to buy a $450,000 home. Because their FICO score dropped to 715, they are bumped out of the top-tier mortgage rates. Instead of getting a 6.5% rate, they get a 7% rate. Over the life of a standard 30-year mortgage, that 0.5% difference is catastrophic. At 6.5%, the interest costs around $573,000. At 7%, the interest jumps to roughly $628,000. The due date payer just absorbed a $54,000 penalty over 30 years, all because they managed their cash flow instead of managing their algorithmic data. Think of it like turning in a flawless essay to your teacher on Friday, which is the due date. But on Wednesday, the closing date, the teacher already finalized the grades and sent them to the principal. Your permanent record shows a failing grade because you did not understand the administrative deadline. But what if you make a mistake on the other side? What if you decide to pay almost everything, but leave a tiny balance past the due date? This triggers scenario B, the grace period trap. Paying your statement balance in full keeps you on the free highway. But the moment you leave even $1 unpaid past the due date, you force your entire financial vehicle onto the toll road. Banks use a math equation called the average daily balance method. If you lose your grace period, you are charged retroactively for every single day of the billing cycle, not just the days after the due date. At a standard 24% annual percentage rate, leaving a $4,500 average daily balance generates almost $90 a month in interest. Even if you earned a 2% cashback reward on that spending, the loss of the grace period instantly destroys your yield. You took on all the risk for a net margin of virtually zero. The math is brutal in both directions. Pay on the due date, you lose your credit score. Pay after the due date, you lose your cash. If you think the utilization penalty is bad, wait until you see the psychological trap the banks built to ensure you never change your behavior. Why do so many smart people fall into this cycle? It comes down to cognitive ease. The behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman wrote about the difference between System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is fast, emotional, and automatic. System 2 is slow, logical, and requires effort. Setting your credit card to autopay on the due date is pure System 1. It requires zero cognitive load once you set it up. Managing your statement dates, on the other hand, requires System 2. It requires you to build a calendar, track moving targets, and actually think about your money. Most people will instinctively default to cognitive ease. They willingly trade their net worth for the comfort of convenience. The financial industry counts on this. They want your money on autopilot because autopilot makes you predictable. When you are predictable, they can model exactly how much revenue they will extract from you over the next decade. Breaking this habit requires a conscious decision to endure a little bit of friction up front for a lifetime of systemic advantage. There is also a profound sunk cost fallacy at play here, which I call the loyalty tax. Consumers falsely believe that proving their loyalty by putting massive balances on their primary bank card and paying them off on time will result in relationship benefits. They think the bank will see their high spending and reward them. But remember, the FICO algorithm strictly sees a high utilization liability. Your own bank will penalize your credit score for fully utilizing the very credit limit they aggressively marketed to you. And this gets much darker when we look at the shift to FICO 10T. The T stands for trended data. Historically, credit utilization had no memory. You could run up your cards for a year, pay them off 1 month before applying for a loan, and look perfect on paper. FICO 10T changes the game completely. It looks at your statement balances over the last 24 months. If you are a habitual due date payer who routinely lets high statement balances post before paying them off, you are now mathematically classified as a high-risk spender. The algorithm labels you a revolver, even if your ultimate balance is always zero. The penalty is permanent. To win this game, you must decouple your spend management from your bureau reporting. You need a system that optimizes both cash flow and algorithmic data simultaneously. I call this the 15-3 protocol. Step 1 is the alignment. We have to reduce the cognitive friction of tracking a dozen different dates. Pick up the phone, call your bank, and legally request to change your statement closing date to the 1st of every month. Do this for every single credit card you own. This centralizes your data reporting to a single window, removing the chaos of mental math. Before we get to step 2, I know that tracking these moving pieces can feel overwhelming. That is exactly why we built Cash Class, the official Tom Talks Money web app. I wanted a tool that bridges the gap between learning the math and actually executing it. Cash Class is entirely privacy first. There are absolutely no bank logins required. You just upload your CSV statement and the software handles the logic. It even includes a free Budgeting 101 course. You can start your 14-day free trial on the web by clicking the link at the very top of the description below. Now, back to the protocol. Step 2 is the pre-close paydown. This is where we execute the utilization hack. The rule is simple. You pay 95% of your current balance exactly 3 days before your new aligned statement closing date. If your statement closes on the 1st of the month, you are making this payment on the 28th. Why 3 days early? Because you have to protect yourself against weekend processing delays or automated clearinghouse failures. If you wait until the day before, a slow bank transfer will cause your massive balance to post on the snapshot date, ruining the entire strategy. By paying 95% of the balance early, you are starving the radar gun of its target. You've spent the money, you got the rewards points, but you hid the evidence before the snapshot was taken. This ensures that when day 2 arrives and the bank echoes your data to the credit bureaus, they are reporting a fraction of your actual spending. You get all the benefits of high-volume credit card usage with absolutely none of the algorithmic downside. But you might be wondering, why only 95%? Why not pay 100% of the balance before the closing date and report a zero balance? This is a common misconception among people trying to optimize their credit. FICO algorithms explicitly penalize a 0% overall utilization rate across all your revolving accounts. To an algorithm, a zero balance does not mean you are highly responsible. It signals that you have stopped using credit altogether, which makes you an unquantifiable risk. The algorithm needs to see a pulse. The target is to leave exactly 1% to 4% utilization on one single card. If your limit is $10,000, you want to leave roughly a $100 balance on the closing date. The result is beautiful. On day 1 and day 2, the bank reports a 1% utilization. You secure the maximum possible FICO points for the amounts owed category. Furthermore, you build a pristine 24-month trend line for FICO 10T. When lenders look back at your history, they see someone who uses credit but never relies on it. You have effectively engineered the perfect financial report card without changing your actual spending habits one bit. We fixed the data leak, but this is where conventional wisdom says to pay everything off immediately, and I am going to tell you to hold on to your cash. Here is why. Step 3 is the due date sweep. This is the float and grace hack. The rule is to pay that remaining 5%, the $100 from our example, exactly 3 days before the actual due date. Remember, the due date is usually around the 25th of the month. By waiting to pay that final sliver of your balance, you are leveraging the float advantage. The cash you used to pay the remaining balance was sitting in a 5% high-yield savings account or a money market fund for an extra 20 days. You are earning risk-free daily compounding yield on the bank's money while simultaneously keeping your grace period intact. Every dollar paid to a bank before the due date, beyond what is needed to optimize the statement closing date, is a dollar not yielding interest in your own pocket. The true optimizer balances keeping utilization low for the algorithms with maximizing the duration of cash held in yielding assets. You win on both fronts. To summarize the entire framework, you control the data on the closing date, and you keep your cash compounding until the due date. You are no longer reacting to the high-contrast red text on your banking app. You are operating on a customized schedule designed specifically to extract the maximum amount of leverage from the financial system. You are decoupling your cash flow from your net worth. It is a slight shift in operational mechanics that results in tens of thousands of dollars in saved interest over a lifetime. This is what it means to stop being a passive consumer and start being a structural optimizer. If you want to take this mindset even further and support the channel directly, consider clicking the join button below to become one of the optimizers. Channel members get priority replies from me in the comments, and you get custom sketch badges next to your name that upgrade the longer you are part of the community. It is a great way to help me keep diving deep into these analytical rabbit holes without having to rely on sensationalized content. But whether you join or just watch, the math remains the same. Let us anchor this in the final data. Payment history and amounts owed make up 65% of your entire credit profile. Managing these 3 days perfectly optimizes the vast majority of your financial reputation. Do not let a bank's user interface dictate your strategy. Remember the radar gun. Do not speed past the snapshot date and expect the due date to save you. Put the 15-3 protocol into practice this week. Call your bank, align your dates to the first of the month, execute the pre-close paydown, and sweep the rest just before the penalty gate closes. I would love to treat the comment section like a peer review board. Drop your current credit card strategy below, let me know if you have been caught by the statement date trap before, or share any data points you have seen when managing your own utilization. I read as many as I can to gather data for future videos. Keep optimizing your systems, keep questioning the conventional wisdom, and I will see you in the next one.